Welcome to this week's edition of Asymmetric Power with me, Dr. V, where we will discuss my correct prediction for 2025 plus the TikTok flip-flop. Let's open with the paradigmatic asymmetric disruptor, President Donald Trump. He is the ultimate comeback kid, and his ability to use all sorts of media, legacy and digital, to usher in his movement and disrupt the global institutional architecture is historic. The irony is that most of this global institutional architecture was built by the United States in the wake of World War II to avert another world war and spread democracy and human rights in America's image. The United Nations, the World Bank, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the Inter-American Development Bank, and, of course, lest we forget, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. President Trump is reconsidering the U.S. relationship to all of these institutions, and he has the backing of a majority of U.S. citizens to do so. Times have changed, and most Americans view these supranational institutions as ossified, expensive, and ineffective. Not only President Trump, but the Americans who voted for him think America has the power to negotiate better deals and be more effective without these institutions. After all, the U.S. economy is strong, the U.S. dollar is the currency of global trade, English is the lingua franca of global business, and we still have the most powerful military and the greatest technological innovation in the world. And that last point has a lot to do with the availability of venture capital to fund that innovation. We can discuss the venture capital aspect at another time. Back to President Trump and my correct prediction for 2025. Upon his inauguration on Monday, President Trump pulled the United States out of the UN's World Health Organization, WHO, and the Paris Climate Accords. NATO and the EU are avowedly worried, as we all foresaw. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, during her speech in Davos World Economic Forum meeting, urged Europe to stick together and increase their collective defense so that individual European countries do not get picked off one by one in negotiations with the Trump administration, which would further erode the power of the European market. I said in my video prediction late last year that that would be the case, and there we have von der Leyen herself pleading the case that I made. But wait, there's more. I also predicted that under a Trump presidency, we could expect the United Kingdom to have a rapprochement with the European Union. Well, news this week reported a secret task force that met all of 2024 to assess areas where Europe might be vulnerable to a Trump presidency. And that task force, in fact, included the United Kingdom. Ta-da! I was right. Now for the TikTok flip-flop. The brouhaha around TikTok that led to overwhelmingly bipartisan legislation and a Supreme Court decision that made it go dark on January 19th, the day before President Trump's inauguration, is due to national security concerns around its Chinese owner, ByteDance. TikTok's algorithms are absolutely incredible at knowing your preferences before you know them. And because it's designed to expose you rapidly to many, many short-form videos, its AI collects more data faster in an ever-accelerating loop of increasing accuracy. The concern that caused President Trump in his first presidency to call for TikTok to be banned in the US or have its US operations sold to a US company is because it accesses and stores your biometrics, your location, your calendar, your contacts list, and other internet browsing. And though the US operations insist the information is stored in US servers, the suspicion is that all that information is stored in servers in China, which puts it under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, commonly referred to as the CCP. As American companies doing business in China will tell you, the CCP does not take no for an answer. So even if the data were stored in US-based servers, the same way platforms and digital marketplaces operating in the EU need to store their information in the EU, not the US, under a law called GDPR, when the CCP comes calling, you turn over the data. That leaves the estimated 170 million US users very vulnerable to the type of sophisticated influence operations we discussed last week. The Biden administration concurred with former President Trump that TikTok represents a national security threat, hence the bipartisan legislation and the Supreme Court decision. However, upon his inauguration into his second presidency on Monday, President Trump ordered that the Justice Department not enforce the law and granted a 90-day reprieve to TikTok until its perils could be assessed by the new Trump administration and a solution found. Why the flip-flop? Because, as President Trump himself said both during his campaign and on Monday, President Trump himself has a TikTok account with an enormous following. While that got TikTok switched back on, to the delight of the 170 million American users, it leaves a legal gray area that Google and Apple refuse to step into. Because a US president cannot contravene both Congress and the Supreme Court, these companies could still be accused of flouting the law. Consequently, the Google and Apple app stores no longer allow the download of TikTok. Let's see what happens in 90 days, whether a US company dares step into the breach to buy a spun out TikTok, presuming the Chinese would sell it because it might allow access to its algorithms, which are, of course, opaque and secret. Full disclosure, I have a personal interest in the TikTok story because I'm personally invested in a UK-based AI venture studio that has patented the emotional perception technology that could rival TikTok, Time Machine Capital 2 and DAACI. So that's, of course, the way I would like to see the story develop for our company to fill TikTok's space. Let's see how we go. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll see each other again next week. Hasta la próxima.